Hello, friends. In this video, we want to share the stories of people who have recently left this world. Their lives and legacies deserve to be remembered, and we hope you will discover something meaningful about them today. Before we begin, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Now, let's get started. Died on September 16, 2025. Pat, Patricia Crawley, 91, was one of those rare mid-century talents who made the leap from studio pictures to the living rooms of America and stayed there, gracious, nimble, and unmistakably herself for more than 6 decades. She won the Golden Globe for New Star of the Year after early film turns in Forever Female and Money from Home, then moved through comedies, melodramas, and eventually, the new medium that would define her, television. She died of natural causes in Los Angeles 2 days before her 92nd birthday, survived by her husband, television executive Andy Friendly, 2 children, 5 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. Born on September 17, 1933, in Oliphant, Pennsylvania, Crawley began on stage, Broadway, and early TV dramas before Hollywood paired her with marquee names like Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, Tony Curtis, and Barbara Stanwyck. Those apprenticeships in the 1950s taught timing as much as glamour, the snap of a screwball exchange, the stillness of a close-up, the way a secondary role can quietly steal a scene. The Globe confirmed what casting directors already knew, that she could carry a picture with warmth and a light touch, yet it was television's weekly cadence that would make her a household name. From 1965 to 1967, Crawley starred as Joan Nash on Please Don't Eat the Daisies, a mother, journalist, and center of a controlled household chaos that felt, for many viewers, like the best kind of mirror. The role captured her essential gift. She made nice interesting. Years later, she would bring the same poise to primetime soaps, notably as Emily Falmont on Dynasty, a character whose polish and vulnerability let her play against the show's operatic scale without ever getting lost in it. Between and beyond those tentpoles came an index of TV history: The Twilight Zone, Gunsmoke, Hawaii Five-0, Columbo, Frasier, Friends, daytime dramas from Generations to a long run on Port Charles, and the late-career indie Montrevey 2012. The breadth wasn't about ubiquity, it was about craft. She slid into a world, lifted it, and moved on. In remembering Pat Crawley, it's easy to list the titles. Harder, perhaps, is naming the quality that bound them. It was a kind of approachable elegance, the wit to keep a scene buoyant, the empathy to keep it honest. She made viewers feel welcome into a family kitchen, a newsroom, a Denver mansion, and then rewarded their attention with work that was precise, playful, and humane. That's why her performances have aged so well. They were never only about style, they were about people. And that, more than any trophy or credit count, is the mark of an actor whose work lasts. Died on September 17, 2025. Max Rafiq Bashir was an Australian football administrator and lawyer whose steady hand and long vision reshaped the game in South Australia. For a quarter-century as president of the SANFL, and for decades before and after in other leadership roles, he guided the state's code through its most dramatic changes, from building a home of its own to negotiating the arrival of National League teams, while keeping faith with the local clubs and communities that gave the sport its soul. He will be remembered as a principled deal-maker, a meticulous steward of finances and facilities, and a guardian of the game's independence in an era of consolidation and pressure from outside. Born on May 9, 1927, in Adelaide, to Lebanese immigrant parents, Bashir came of age in a household that prized education, obligation, and perseverance. He studied law at the University of Adelaide, was admitted to practice in the early 1950s, and built a respected career in the profession even as football drew him into public life. What began as volunteer service, honorary solicitor, and tribunal work for the Amateur League turned into a lifetime project, modernizing how South Australian football governed itself, paid its bills, treated its players, and planned for the future. By the late 1960s and 1970s, he had become one of the SAFFL's pivotal figures, serving as commissioner, vice president, and then president. Under his watch, the league financed and built Football Park at West Lakes, a bold act of self-determination that gave the code its own stage. He pushed through lighting and infrastructure upgrades in the face of political heat and public scrutiny, convinced that the league had to think in decades, not seasons. In the 1990s, as the national competition expanded, Bashir helped steer the complex, often contentious path that brought South Australia's clubs into the AFL. He fought hard bargains, protected SANFL interests, and insisted that national ambition should not erase state identity. His imprint remains visible in the places the game calls home. The training oval, long known as Max Bashir Reserve, and the Max Bashir Stand at Adelaide Oval carry his name not as ornament, but as acknowledgement. He was a builder of facilities, of frameworks, of durable agreements. Honors followed naturally: life memberships, Hall of Fame inductions, and national recognition for service. Yet those who worked with him most often speak first about character, the courtesy in negotiation, the steel behind it, and the habit of doing the unglamorous administrative work that keeps a sport healthy. In mourning Max Bashir, South Australia salutes a statesman of its national game, a man who left the code stronger than he found it, with better places to play, clearer pathways to the elite, and a future planned on solid ground.
Died on September 16, 2025. Murray Williamson was a builder of American hockey in the deepest sense of the word, a player, coach, and architect of systems who helped carry the sport in the United States from a regional passion to an international presence. Known to most as the head coach of the U.S. men's Olympic teams in 1968 and 1972, he led the Sapporo squad to a silver medal and, in doing so, helped reassert the country's credibility on the world stage. Long before and long after those games, he was the connective tissue of programs and people, an All-American at the University of Minnesota in the 1950s, a player-coach and general manager in the old U.S. Hockey League, a tireless advocate for junior development, and later a Hall of Fame inductee whose counsel was sought by generations. He was born on January 13, 1934, in Winnipeg, and found his competitive home across the border in Minnesota, where his scoring touch and fierce competitiveness made him a Gopher star. From those campus rinks, he moved seamlessly into leadership roles, first on the bench, then in the boardrooms and back corridors where the shape of a sport is decided. He coached U.S. national teams at World Championships, managed rosters through lean years and hopeful ones, and never confused glamour with progress. For him, the measure of success was whether players had a pathway and whether teams had the structure to grow. Williamson's lasting work lived in that word, pathways. He helped stand up junior frameworks that would become the backbone of American player development, insisted on better coaching standards, and believed that opportunities should be earned, but also organized. He was unafraid of hard decisions, steady in negotiation, and generous with his time. The kind of mentor who would spend as long with a young coach diagramming a breakout as with a veteran debating roster balance. His teams were disciplined and resilient, his programs built to outlast a single season or a single personality. In later years, honors arrived as naturally as they had once eluded him. Hall of Fame plaques, alumni ovations, ceremonial puck drops. He accepted them without fuss and returned to what he valued: practices, conversations, plans. Those who knew him best talk first about his standards and his patience. Those who knew him only by reputation talk about the doors he opened and the pride he restored. Murray Williamson's legacy is visible in the medal history of U.S. hockey, in the junior leagues that feed its colleges and national teams, and in the coaches who learned to teach because he first taught them. He leaves the American game stronger, clearer, and more connected than he found it.
Born on August 16, 1962, in Concord, Massachusetts, Steve Carell would grow into one of the defining American comic actors of his era, a performer whose gentle, humane sensibility sits beneath some of the sharpest comedy of the last 2 decades. He is best known for transforming Michael Scott on The Office into a cultural touchstone, for energizing big-screen comedies like The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Anchorman, and Crazy, Stupid Love, and for surprising audiences with weighty dramatic turns in Foxcatcher, which earned him an Academy Award nomination, and The Big Short. His signature achievement is not just a list of hits, but a style: awkward, compassionate, sometimes painfully honest humor that finds the human being inside the joke, a quality that helped redefine modern sitcoms and made him a Golden Globe-winning star whose characters live on in memes and memory. Carell's beginnings were ordinary and tightly rooted in New England. He grew up in nearby Acton in a close middle-class family, the youngest of 4 sons. His mother, Harriet, worked as a nurse. His father, Edwin, was an engineer. Practical people who valued education, steadiness, and community. Home life mixed seriousness with warmth. Weekends often revolved around extended family and small-town rituals. He played youth sports, helped with chores, learned to listen before he spoke. From his parents, he absorbed a quiet work ethic and a sense that comedy wasn't just about punchlines, it was also about paying close attention to people. At school, he gravitated toward performance early, though not always in obvious ways. He attended the Fenn School and later Middlesex School, where he split his time between classrooms, playing fields, and the stage. He tried on different identities: the kid who loved history and music, the teammate willing to take a hit for the play, the shy student who suddenly lit up during a sketch or a scene. In those years, he discovered the 2 gears that would later define his screen work: meticulous preparation and fearless improvisation. He joined school theater, tried radio bits and sketches with friends, and learned how to land a laugh without cruelty. New England traditions also left their mark. Carell played the fife in a local colonial reenactment corps, marching in parades and ceremonies, an oddly perfect training ground for timing, teamwork, and stage presence. He watched how crowds react, how a small choice, a beat, a pause, a glance can change the mood of a moment. Teachers noticed a bright, courteous student who didn't dominate the room, but could quietly take it over when the curtain went up. By the time he finished Pratt School, he wasn't chasing fame so much as chasing craft. Performance had become the way he organized the world, observing, refining, repeating until it felt true. Standing on the threshold of college, he carried forward a modest but unshakable conviction that he could make people laugh without talking down to them, and that there was something generous and necessary in doing so. As Steve Carell moved into college and early adulthood, the instincts that had taken root in New England turned into deliberate training. At Denison University in Ohio, he studied history, but his real education unfolded on campus stages and with an improv troupe that drilled him in listening, timing, and the art of making a scene feel accidental and inevitable at once. He learned to write his own material, to fail in front of friends and try again the next night, and to keep the laugh honest, earned by character, not cruelty. For a time, he considered law school, but the stage kept pulling him back. What began as extracurricular fun hardened into ambition. After graduation, he headed for Chicago, the proving ground of American improv. The city demanded humility and repetition, day jobs to pay rent, late-night rehearsals, and 8 shows a week in cramped black boxes. At the Second City, he absorbed a worldview as much as a technique. Commit fully, play the truth of the moment, make your partner look good. He taught classes, wrote sketches, toured, and kept building a toolkit of voices and characters. In that community, he also met Nancy Walls, a sharp, fearless performer who would become his wife. Together, they learned how to balance creative risk with the ordinary business of making a living. Those years were lean and formative. Carell collected small roles in commercials and bit parts on television while continuing to write and perform sketch comedy. In 1996, he joined a short-lived but influential primetime sketch show that gathered a remarkable concentration of future stars. The run was brief, the lessons lasting. A few years later, he landed at The Daily Show, where he evolved from a reliable correspondent into a signature presence, deadpan, self-flattering, and strangely vulnerable under the bluster. Recurring bits sharpened his satire, and a recurring on-air duel with a fellow correspondent taught him how to turn competitive chemistry into character. By the early 2000s, the film world began to notice. Small but vivid roles, an overmatched news anchor here, an oddly endearing weatherman there, hinted that Carell could steal scenes without raising his voice. The skills forged in clubs and classrooms now read clearly on camera. Precise timing, generous ensemble work, and the ability to ground absurdity in recognizable human need. He had not yet reached the projects that would make him a household name, but the path was set. The craft was in place. All he needed was the right door to open, and he was already standing just outside it.
By the mid-2000s, the door finally swung open. In 2005, the 40-year-old virgin turned Steve Carell from a familiar face into a leading man and a new kind of comedy star. He co-wrote the film and anchored it with a performance that mixed embarrassment with empathy. The jokes landed because the character felt real, not ridiculed. The movie's success reintroduced a big-hearted, character-driven style of studio comedy and announced that Carell could carry a film while keeping the laughs grounded in human stakes. That same year, he stepped into the role that would define an era of television, Michael Scott in the American version of The Office. What could have been a one-note buffoon became, in Carell's hands, a complicated study in neediness, delusion, and hope. He made the silence after a bad joke as funny as the punchline, and he found the sweetness inside the cringe. Over multiple seasons, he helped reshape the modern sitcom, single camera, mock documentary, ensemble forward, and emotionally honest. The show made him a Golden Globe winner, and more importantly, a character that millions carried into their daily lives, quoted in offices that looked uncomfortably like Dunder Mifflin. Success on television fueled a run of films that broadened his range without abandoning his sensibility. He led comedies like Get Smart, Date Night, and Crazy Stupid Love, proving he could be nimble as an action foil, a romantic lead, or the flustered center of a farce. He also found a second home in animation, voicing Gru in the Despicable Me franchise, another masterclass in warmth beneath absurdity, and one of the most beloved comic personas of the century for families around the world. Then came the pivot to drama, not as a detour, but as a revelation of tools he'd been sharpening for years. In Little Miss Sunshine, he played a quiet, wounded scholar. In Foxcatcher, he disappeared into cold menace, earning an Academy Award nomination. In Big Short, he channeled moral fury through gallows humor. Later roles, Beautiful Boy and Vice, showed the same trait that defined his comedy, an insistence on playing the truth of a moment, even when that truth is uncomfortable. As his career matured, Carell also moved behind the camera, co-creating series with Nancy Carell, producing projects and shepherding ensembles on television, The Morning Show and Space Force, where his instinct for collaborative rhythm remained central. What endures is not just the list of hits, but a particular ethic of performance, generosity to scene partners, respect for the audience's intelligence, and humor that refuses to punch down. Steve Carell helped redefine mainstream comedy by making awkwardness humane and sincerity cool again, then proved that the muscles built in improv clubs could carry the weight of serious drama. And on characters who, whether they're paper company managers or supervillains with a soft heart, remind us how funny and fragile it is to be human.